Are you ready to take your striking game to the next level? Then you've got to get the focus ball. Dramatically improved footwork, timing, reflex, hand-eye coordination, head movement, and striking IQ. Lightweight and extremely portable, so you can train every time, everywhere with the focus ball.
Hi everyone, you're watching Dante's Boxing
Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? You know what I always say on this channel. Eventually, the truth will come to light. You can lock up the truth in a jail cell. Eventually, that truth will find a way to break free. And the truth has come home when it comes to Oscar De La Hoya and Canelo Alvarez, or at least the beef that they have between each other. I've been telling you guys, the majority of things that I've been telling you about Oscar De La Hoya and Canelo Alvarez's beef, Oscar De La Hoya's actions right now is starting to validate everything that I suspected and have told you about their beef. So let's get into it. Oscar De La Hoya, he does an interview. For those of you guys who don't know, Oscar De La Hoya, he announced about a week or two ago that he's working on a comeback. He's training, he's getting in shape right now. He said he was inspired by Mike Tyson making his comeback. Now, when Oscar De La Hoya made his announcement of a comeback, it didn't really make that many big waves in boxing news. Part of the reason is because it was overshadowed by Mike Tyson talking about his comeback. But it turns out that Oscar De La Hoya, he's pretty serious. He did say he wants to see how Mike Tyson looks first before he makes his comeback. Now, what he said in a recent interview, though, that's what surprised a lot of people. And the main person it had to surprise was his own fighter, Canelo Alvarez. Because in this interview, he was asked the question, will we see De La Hoya versus Canelo in 2021? And instead of Oscar De La Hoya saying, absolutely not, come on, man, that's my fighter. How can I fight my own guy that I promote? Instead of him saying anything like that, Oscar De La Hoya's answer is, I don't know. And then the reporter was even surprised, so the reporter started pushing him on that question. He wanted him to make it clear. So he says to Oscar, now, you didn't say no. And Oscar De La Hoya, he doubled down. He didn't shy away from the question. He didn't retract. His exact words was crazy, huh? But not that crazy. Like basically saying, I know it sounds crazy that I would fight Canelo, but it's really not that crazy. He then gave Canelo Alvarez his props as a fighter. This is what he had to say. Quote, Canelo's an amazing fighter. He's the best. He's pound for pound champ. He hits like a mule. I don't know. He says to the reporter, you're throwing me in the fire right here. But that's a challenge that, you know, I never back down from anybody. But we'll have to wait and see, end quote. Once again, what you just heard Oscar De La Hoya say right there, it confirms all the rumors were true. That Oscar De La Hoya and Canelo Alvarez were pretty much no longer friends. They were just working together. We also heard reports a couple months back that Oscar De La Hoya and Canelo Alvarez, they only communicate through their lawyers now. So they don't hop on the phone and talk to each other anymore. It's a serious beef between the two. But this takes the beef to a whole nother level when a promoter is indirectly calling out his own fighter. I can't recall the last time I've seen something like this or heard something like this in the sport of boxing. You know, the thing is, Oscar De La Hoya, he could have said he wants to fight Manny Pacquiao in a rematch. He could have said he wants to fight Floyd Mayweather. I mean, if he was going to call out people working for him, he could have said, I want to fight Bernard Hopkins in a rematch. But he said he's willing to fight Canelo Alvarez. That tells you so much. I've been telling you guys for the longest, I truly believe that Oscar De La Hoya has become extremely frustrated over Canelo Alvarez's selection of opponents. Remember, it was Oscar De La Hoya that said over a year ago, in order for Canelo Alvarez to be considered great, he has to fight Jermall Charlo and Demetrius Andrade. Shortly after Oscar De La Hoya said that, Canelo Alvarez actually vacated his belt to avoid Jermall Charlo. Now Jermall Charlo is the WBC champion because Canelo refused to fight his #1 mandatory. Canelo then said that he doesn't want to fight Demetrius Andrade because he doesn't like his style, which we all know what that means. Translation, it's a very difficult fight. Demetrius Andrade is about, 6'1", if not taller? He's long, rangy. He can fight on the inside. He can fight on the outside. He's slick. He's an Olympian, and he fights similar to the last undefeated American champion that Canelo Alvarez lost to, and that's Floyd Mayweather. I have been telling guys for the longest that Demetrius Andrade, he reminds me of a tall southpaw version of Floyd Mayweather because of his timing, his slickness, and his reflexes. You have to understand, because Oscar De La Hoya, he fought the Demetrius Andrades, the Charlos, in his division. With Canelo Alvarez, while we have to wait every 2-3 years for him to get in the ring with another undefeated, extremely talented champion on his level, Oscar De La Hoya was fighting opponents like this every other fight. Oscar was fighting undefeated fighters like Ike Corte, undefeated fighters like Shane Mosley, undefeated fighters like Tito Trinidad, pound for pound champions like Pernell Whitaker. I'm gonna tell you right now, outside of a Pernell Whitaker, because Pernell, he was a small fighter, didn't have a lot of power, and he was towards the end of his career, that's someone Canelo might have fought back then if he was in Oscar's shoes. But with the moves that Canelo is making today, Canelo would have never fought an Ike Corte. He would have never fought a Tito Trinidad. He would have never fought a Shane Mosley. And trust me, if social media was around back then, fans would be saying the same things that they're saying today when it comes to defending Canelo not fighting the Charlos, the Andrades. They would be saying, oh man, that Shane Mosley is a bum. Who did he fight? Oh, that Trinidad is a bum, right? Canelo has a better resume. He doesn't need to fight them. This is what they would be saying. And I believe this is what's driving, this is what's motivating Oscar De La Hoya to come out of retirement. Because Oscar De La Hoya, he wants to show Canelo Alvarez how you behave if you truly believe that you're the best. If you want to be considered a great, this is what you're supposed to do. Guys, can you imagine if Oscar De La Hoya really does go after Canelo Alvarez? Even if he doesn't fight Canelo Alvarez, imagine how bad that would make Canelo Alvarez look if his old promoter goes after Jermall Charlo, accepts a fight with Jermall Charlo, accepts a fight with Demetrius Andrade. Do you know how bad that's gonna make Canelo Alvarez look? Right now, Canelo Alvarez is running out of time. He's 30 years old, he's running out of time. And you know, I made a video talking about him running out of time because he's 30 years old, and a lot of Canelo Alvarez fans, they start defending Canelo by saying, well, what do you mean? Terrence Crawford is 32 and Errol is 30 and all these other fighters are in their 30s, right? So I'm gonna make a separate video where I'm gonna explain to you why Canelo Alvarez's situation is completely different. But I'll save that for another video. Now, some of you smart people with common sense, you already understand what that means when I tell you he's in a different situation. But if you don't understand it, just wait for the video. I'll break it down to where a second grader can understand the facts and the logic to it. So I'm telling you guys right now, this news is going to really piss off Canelo Alvarez. It's going to really piss him off because he already didn't like Oscar from some of the things that he was saying about Oscar. I'm sure Canelo and Ryan Garcia, they be having some serious ass conversations about Oscar De La Hoya. But with that being said, even though Canelo has already made it clear Oscar is not his best friend, this still has to surprise him that his own promoter would challenge him to a fight, not challenge him to a fight, but at least put him on the list as possible opponents in the future. That has got to really surprise even Canelo Alvarez. We'll see if Canelo Alvarez responds to this news, and we'll see how serious Oscar De La Hoya is when it comes to his comeback, how serious he is when it comes to getting in the ring with the top guys. I can tell you right now, that if Oscar De La Hoya can regain any form of who he was 12 years ago, then he could be in some really competitive fights. Let's not forget, Oscar De La Hoya gave Floyd Mayweather one of his toughest fights. So if he can regain form, if he could look like the Oscar of old, we're gonna see some really good fights with Oscar De La Hoya. If he's serious about this comeback, which I believe he is. And let me just say one more thing before I wrap this video up. If Oscar De La Hoya did get in the ring with a Jamal Charlo, a Demetrius Andrade, it doesn't even matter if Oscar De La Hoya loses the fight. It doesn't matter. It's going to make Canelo Alvarez look horrible. Oscar De La Hoya is already a great fighter. He's already a Hall of Famer. He has nothing to lose going into a fight with anybody. Just like when Mikey Garcia was willing to get in the ring with Errol Spence when everyone was avoiding Errol Spence in the division at the time. But this is going to make Canelo look way worse than that situation. Let's see how it all plays out. That's all I got for now, guys. I'm on to the next one. You know, I always say on this channel, pay-per-view fights should actually be free. And now the day has come where I'm about to hook you up with an app where you can watch all your pay-per-view events, boxing, UFC, etc. for free. I want to introduce Block TV, the best internet streaming television app out there. They provide over 3,600 channels, including HBO, Cinemax, Showtime, and Stars. They have a massive video on demand library with over 40,000 of the new release movies and the latest TV series. And it also includes DVR. So you're getting all of this for $34.99 a month. And once again, that includes free pay-per-view. So this one right here is a no-brainer, guys, because back in Las Vegas, I was paying damn near $200 a month for my cable. Those days are long gone now. So to get the app, make sure you guys go over to getblocktv.com and put in my promo code and get 30% off your first month. You also get a free month for every friend you refer. The promo code is DBNation.